Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming this stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
It was somewhere between the beginning of time and the end of time. Because a little closer to the end of time, I think, but I can't really say for sure because I have drunk from the fountain of youth. No, I have. I went down to St. Augustine, Florida, and I stood in line for over an hour, and I paid $11 for the experience. And that was with the AAA discount. Now, the water from the fountain of youth was actually served to me in a disposable cup by a well-tanned teenager in a red and gold conquistador outfit. I didn't think about it much until later that afternoon. I was at my friend's place in the suburbs, and we were sitting around his swimming pool, and there was that same kid, still wearing the red and gold conquistador outfit, sunning himself in the water. He was held afloat by a life-sized inflatable alligator. Its tail wrapped around one side of him and its mouth around the other, and in its snout was a yellow beer koozie maintaining an ice-cold Corona.
I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced at the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side.
This kid seemed to be one of those people who never gets off work, as if he actually enjoyed being employed by the Chamber of Commerce, or maybe he had posted his list of hobbies to some online job search and it matched him up with the red and gold conquistador outfit, and he said, "This is what I want to do with the rest of my life." "Welcome to St. Augustine," he said, and his voice had that sort of snide self-confidence of a camp counselor announcing a snipe hunt. "The oldest city in the Western Hemisphere. It was here that Ponce de Leon and I searched for the Fountain of Youth. I was only 19 years old at the time."
Good morning, America, how are ya?
This kid's taking his character a little too far, I thought.
Don't you know me, I'm your native son.
Kind of like George Bush thinking he really is the president. He explained, most people think of the Fountain of Youth to just be some foolish Indian myth. I don't, I thought. Why else would they buy all these ads for minoxidil and Viagra and silicone breast implants? As for me, I keep my Viagra right next to my Prozac. But you know, if either one of them worked, I really wouldn't need the other one. There seemed to be some sort of a language barrier, he explained, because the Calusa Indians were not talking about a fountain of youth that could melt away cellulite or prevent gingivitis. They were talking about the youth of the species, not the individual.
Oh, but I was so much older then, I'm younger than that now.
It's why when the Spanish came here in search of decent Indian food, and also in search of fresh slaves, the free African sailors that came over with them started putting two and two together, that hostile Indians who knew the territory better than they didn't make such good slaves, and that they might become the very slaves the Spanish were in search of. So they built a fort for their own protection, adjacent to the famous Spanish fort. Yes, the first slaves in America were not black, and the first blacks in America were not slaves. And this is well before Plymouth Rock landed on the Indians. Mention that the next time you meet some Boston blue blood boasting of how long ago his ancestors on the Mayflower arrived here.
We all live neath this great big dipper.
And those African slaves I mentioned before knew this too.
We are washed by the very same rain.
For they adopted Christian stories about crossing the river of eternal life.
We are swimming this stream together. together.
Or at least crossing from slave territories into free ones.
Some in power and some in pain.
You know, it's kind of ironic that the mythology of their captors helped the slaves escape the mythology of their captors.
We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
And the Seminole took these former slaves in, gave them room and board, gave them jobs in their casinos. The African cultures and the Indian cultures mixed. Together they invented menthol cigarettes. And let me tell you, when Colonel Sanders, who was settling just north of there, heard about free blacks living in their own community, he tried to put a stop to it and hired a guy by the name of Andrew Jackson. But Colonel Sanders' faithful family retainers, Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima, teamed up with the Florida State Seminole, and Andrew Jackson was forced to surrender while slinking back to Washington, D.C. to declare victory. It's not the only time that defeat in Florida has led to becoming president, but that's a different story. As for the Seminole, they remain unconquered to this day. Think about that the next time you go down to Hollywood, Florida, and feed a green picture of Andrew Jackson into a slot machine. Perhaps the casinos are the Indians' way of paying white people back for bringing them the 40-ouncer. I wondered why he hadn't mentioned that back at the tourist trap.
On this journey through thoughts and feelings, binding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I am preparing to do my part. All of those who have gone before me band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side.
Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details about the first slaves to be freed by the Emancipation Proclamation, or the first big race riot that eventually led to the end of segregation, all happening in St. Augustine, Florida. I'll just say that it happened, and that in the end, a man named after Martin Luther had a dream that eventually came true. That's not to say that he was the only one that had that dream, or that the present is particularly auspicious. In fact, there are far too many descendants of former slaves working minimum wage jobs, using the very water from the fountain of youth to water the emerald lawns of the Ponce de Leon Golf and Conference Center. But it's a glass half empty, half full question, to which I say, get a smaller glass.
And when we get there, we'll discover
there are millions of problems in this world.
all of the gifts we've been given to share.
A million of them right here, right now.
Have been with us since life's beginning.
But that means there are a million answers,
And we never noticed
a million
they were
voices,
there.
and a million dreams.
We can balance at the brink of wisdom,
And every dream comes true.
never recognizing that we've arrived.
All in the way you interpret it.
Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
Ponce de Leon, too, had a dream. He just didn't interpret his the right way. And his quest in the wrong pursuit wound up getting him killed 100 miles south of St. Augustine. And back in March, 100 miles south of St. Augustine, in a place you and I know as Cape Canaveral, the roosters said it best. They began crowing as roosters do. But the thing is, the dawn was not yet upon us, yet the whole horizon bloomed at once. A misty blue light filled our lungs as the horizon hurled yellow rage across the water's edge. Thousands of miles an hour, a blue-gray ribbon suddenly streaked towards the open arms of heaven. The sky went dark again, and then a long trail of God's own cigar smoke was all that remained. It seems that the Hubble telescope was again in need of repair. And the space shuttle was making a house call that morning. And 3 astronauts were deployed with a bottle of Windex to go clean its mirror. The infinite is smaller somehow. Yes, I said, get a smaller glass.
We all live neath this great big dipper, We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming this stream together, some in power and some in pain.
But you know, if you think about it, from up there, when you look down on it, Florida itself might look like a giant limp dick hanging flaccid from the beast now known as the United States. But if you really think about it, from that drooping Johnson, mankind ejaculates into the cosmos, shooting the seeds of the fountain of youth to swim the heavens in search of eternal creation.
We can worship this ground we walk on.
We have walked on the moon.
Cherishing the beings we live beside.
Satellites do probe the galaxies.
Loving spirits will live forever.
There is a fountain of youth,
and we're all swimming to the other side.
which has nothing to do with minoxidil, Viagra, or silicone breast implants. As I thought about that, the fountain of youth, not the silicone breast implants, I found myself drifting back into consciousness in a swimming pool in St. Augustine, Florida, held afloat by a life-sized inflatable alligator, my corona no longer ice cold, wondering, how do I interpret this dream?